All right, take 3. Apparently, we're. I don't know what all that was about. Okay. Yeah. Okay. My third attempt at starting this stream. I just restarted my computer, so now I have to reopen everything that I normally have open during the stream. Don't mind me. So, yeah, the universe did not want me to stream today, but I won anyway. First time I attempted to start this, my microphone just wasn't working for some reason, and it wasn't the microphone itself because I tested it in other programs and used it earlier today, so I knew it wasn't that. Also, ignore that the lighting was blue just because of the desktop. Once I have anything else here, I won't be so blue. And then, but for some reason in OBS, actually we get infinite OBS land as I give explanations. The audio input device, i.e. here, i.e. my microphone, it was just for some reason set to, whatever the default, like none of, like it couldn't find anything, and I had to reset it to that. That hasn't happened before. I don't know why that decided to happen today. I mean, I updated, like Windows had an update between yesterday and today, so I'm guessing that randomly messed with some things, but why? Why that specifically? Why nothing else on my computer break except for thing I need to stream? And then attempt 2, then the internet was just being super duper topy. This thing was in the red, and this was at 6,000 is a good number. Around 200 is a very, very bad number. But again, internet being totally fine on rest of computer. So yeah, OBS is just having a good old laugh at my expense. So, yeah, fun. Anyways, so much for starting stream in an elegant way. Don't mind me, I now have to, now that I see that things are working, we're going to start things properly here. I now have to do, again, the prep work that I usually do right before I actually start the stream. Starting with getting random video game music. We're going to go with... Oh, that's gonna be loud. Oh no. No. That was way too loud. Now it's fine. Ow. Also, my microphone's in frame. No, can't have that. Okay. And then, what we're actually doing today is doing a bit of work, but it's probably gonna be mostly me rambling on the Handyman with Unicycle. So we get the Unity project open up. I also have another thing I want to show over in this project, so we're gonna open that up. And then my screen background animation, that stuff below the screen, gotta get that started up. There we go. And then 3, 2, 1, and there you go. That's the actual. Rather than, I have that when the animation isn't working, it has just a image in the background that's like close enough. As just a backup thing, rather than just being pure black. Which was just from taking a screenshot when the program was running. Anyways, so, yeah, that's the thing. I did try, actually, so, first thing, before we get to what I actually want to be doing, which is talking about stuff with the Handyman with Unicycle and more specifically with the camera. I have a lot of rambling I want to do with it. But first, this. I have my cool animation that's playing below the stream, and that's cool and all. So the current colors of it right now are sort of my brand colors with just a little bit more for variety. My cyan, magenta, yellow are like my brand colors, and then I put white, gray, and black just to have more stuff going on, more variety to it. Yeah, just this slowly growing circles thing, which looks cool. Oh, X-Men lifts. Hello, Google Chrome. Yeah, that's. All right. Hello. Welcome to the stream. You just got here. I just said that, like, so this is attempt 3 at starting this stream. I don't actually know if now like 3 stream notifications are gonna go out. Oh, looks like. Okay, looks like my stream notification thing may have broken. Let's put a manual one. That's fine. I started my project over. Oh, really? Oh no. Why is that? So funny thing, I'm about to ramble about how I might be remaking this camera system, not from scratch, but giving it a decent overhaul due to just some extra stuff that it needs. Not even overhaul is the right word, because I'm not doing it completely from scratch, but like close-ish. I want to focus on one thing at a time now. That's fair. Yeah, that's fair. After I changed my rendering backend, everything fell apart to the point where refactoring it was just like, ooh, yeah, that's not fun. That's kind of, to give examples of how I've been through that thing. So now I'll work on the rendering first and nothing else. Yeah, that's fair. Having a good foundation before you build stuff on that foundation. I also took a little break. Yeah, I kind of took a mini-ish break from working on this, more just from being busy with other things. Also, last few streams we did, we were playing Lost in Random, which I will be getting back to, but wanted to sprinkle one stream in there, going back to the actual programming stuff that I want to mainly have my channel be doing. Really also frustrated. I'll be needing font rendering now. Oh, like that's the next thing that you're doing is rendering like text or something. That's cool. That's cool. What I was gonna say, so I'm with this game that I'm making. I was about to be starting to make a over here like the first like demo sort of real-ish level that was gonna be an actual taste of proper gameplay. But now I have taken a step back and am over here and am basically rebuilding a lot of my player from the ground up. Getting, yeah, that kind of rebuilding foundational stuff with how the player moves around and whatnot. And that's being a whole big old thing. Which I think when I get through all this, when I get through the other side of this, the player will be awesome and a lot better than they were before. That's the old player over there. Old player, new player. Obviously, a new one is still in progress. It'll eventually have the same unicycle and leaning and all that. The other one will. It'll eventually be better, but it has a while to go to get there. But this one, like, it has a lot more going on with momentum and better physics and better dealing with slopes and stuff. But again, still a long way from being done. But then now also the camera, I need to do. I want to do more with to better have the camera work when you're going up slopes, when you're going up walls and upside down and all that kind of stuff. That's, yeah, the whole thing. Oh, no. Why is the stream lagging? Uh-oh. Excuse me. I gotta play mode. Are you gonna calm down? Yeah. I'll turn this down to that. If that helps. Yeah. We're good? Sure. Whatever. Weird. Okay, at least cut that soon, the stream didn't die. I missed some messages, I think I'll do them bitmap since they don't change in size. For fonts, I guess not? Or, like, depending on how you do it. And, vector graphics is 1, too complex for me, 2, too expensive. Yeah, I can see that being complicated. Then I used a library for text and it does work. Neato. Everything looks great, but it's expensive to render for me, so I'm trying making something a little less accurate but faster. I meant they won't change in size in my UI. Yeah, that's fair. Makes sense. But yeah, going for less accurate but fast definitely can be the way to go about things if you're trying to get the most performance that you can out of such things. I imagine I'll be doing the same amount of like I'll be doing like also some amount of cheating in this game to get everything working as I want it and whatnot. Yeah. Oh no, why are we dropping a few frames? Why is everything being wonky today with my screen? I don't know why. Nothing changed other than, I mean, I did update Windows, but like, and I know that has a historical record of making things unexpectedly break, but hasn't happened in a while. Usually when I start a stream and I mute, it's because I've accidentally like muted my microphone or something, but this time, no, it was OBS's fault. A few days ago, I beat the compiler in micro optimizations. Nice. Yeah, that could be fun to do that. Also, this game works on controller now. That guy does not work on controller, so currently, I think actually I don't know how. Well, I have a rough idea of how, but like the controls currently work better on a controller than they kind of do on a keyboard. Like in that they don't fully match. I mean, obviously they won't completely match because multiple directions, single direction, but like I don't know. Even going back and forth in the same direction somehow this is snappier than this for reasons, because code complicated. But again, I have like rough ideas of why some specific things are happening. That stuff to still be ironed out, but yeah, I'm missing messages, but that also could be because my C++ code is bad. But that's besides the point. My laptop has a decent amount of processing power when every instruction is optimized. Yeah, that makes sense. Code be good and thing program run good. Makes sense to me. But yeah, no, that's cool. Hope you're yeah, continuing to make that thing. Hopefully I get yeah, hope it goes well. And seems like it's going pretty good so far. And yeah. So yeah, now doing text, that's interesting. And having a library, I guess that like saves you from having to type out what like every single individual character is. Are you still like controlling like fonts and stuff, or is it all kind of you're defaulting just one font, sort of keeping it simple for now, or it's all being like hard coded as far as that goes? Yeah. Yeah, go with one font. Yeah, makes sense. Fair enough. Again, like with anything like that, like even if you wanted to add more fonts later, it makes sense to at least start now with just sort of one thing, get it to work in like a basic form, and then when that's working, then I just want something simple that works. Yeah, makes sense. Also, yeah, physics is still wonky. I should not be getting, well, yeah, I shouldn't necessarily be getting that much error off of a little bump in the road like that. But that's fine. So, sort it out. Yeah, it makes sense. In my case, I had a simple-ish player that was kind of working, but now I'm making the player so much more complicated in the hopes of having a better end product with it once I iron out all of the bugs, which we're getting there. It's like, yeah, this new player is still in very early stages, and already the code is complicated, and before it was complicated, still has a lot to go. But I needed different words. But I need a different size fonts. I can still. Oh, if I need a different size fonts, I can use that other library. Fair enough. Cool. It has that stuff involved. That's good. Oh, I can't. Right. I can't. Controller does not work in that menu at the moment. I remember at one point I was able to get it to either work on a controller or like, more with keyboard. I was able to. Oh, no, I can, right. No, I did fix that problem, yes. At one point, I could either get it to work with keyboard or mouse, but not both, having both at the same time with not working. But then I ended up fixing it. Enter is being weird. Okay, that's... Okay, there's a million things on the plate of stuff to solve. But, like, right now, I'm mainly still focusing on the player itself, and once I get the player back into a more stable spot, then, yeah, take it from there. And I imagine we'll continue to sort of add to this test environment, which still, there's a lot I need to do to even get the player to be able to handle all the stuff going on here. Okay, not great at the moment. It's still very much a work in progress. So I can make my library use my own, so I can make my library use my own implementation combined with theirs. Yeah, okay, makes sense. But I could only render a couple thousand strings of text on my laptop with it, so it's very expensive for it. So that's why you want to have your own implementation of such things, so it can be more optimized for specifically how you're using such things. Makes sense. Now, I don't know enough about fonts to know if this is due to their poor optimization or if it's just that demanding, because I don't know how many calculations are actually needed. Nor do I, because I haven't done much with that particular thing. I mean, my game has some fonts, but that's all taken care of behind the scenes. Didn't have to, yeah, manually do anything with that. But, I mean, like, you'd have to, so somehow, somewhere, you'd have, like, every character being stored, like, every character you can have, letters and symbols and all that. Oh, errors, I'm noticing that. Maybe errors. With the restart button? Oh, did I press that by accident? That's my, I believe that was a result of me pressing my cheat win button? No. Never mind. I don't know. I mean, in this new like player test scene, some of my external stuff with actual like game logic of winning and losing levels, I imagine that's a lot of that's not properly functional here. Which, yeah, again, it's like stripped a lot of stuff apart in this scene, and then I'm starting to yeah, build it back up with a better foundation. Well, more about just having the player move in a way that's more enjoyable, I guess. But yeah, and then doing more with the environment itself. Cool environments to move around in and cool things to interact with. Hold on. I believe their implementation generates each letter at runtime. Just using some font information. Oh, interesting. That, I guess, seems like a way to have less of like less space storing all the characters or whatever. But then maybe. But then I guess that's more space at runtime. It's done in the fragment shader. Okay, fair enough. I think in Unity you have like sprite atlases kind of thing. You just have one giant texture that's made up of a bunch of little textures in a way, like that all get like split up, but it's all actually part of one file that just represents different parts of it. I don't remember where exactly that stuff is saved in TechNet Pro stuff. Here's one font, but I think that I know I have more around, but I can't see. Should this not have? No, not you. You're not actually what I'm looking for. Where? Because I know literally the information to have this current text to be as it is. Oh, of course, a folder called fonts. Font assets. I think that's it. Yeah. Letters. They should cover like a full sphere. I don't know why this one specifically doesn't, but yeah, that's different. Woo! Yeah. I don't know why it puts it on a sphere, but it does. Because reasons. Yeah. But in their implementation, it's better if you need different sizes. Oh, right, because then you just sort of scale it up. Yeah, that makes sense. Fair enough. Yeah, sprite atlas is what I'll go with because I only need one size font. It'll be fine for my purposes. Yeah, fair enough. And it's not as complex. Also makes sense. I have rendered images before, so I think I'm capable. Yeah, in their implementation, you just give it a float value, it scales smoothly. Ah, yeah. Okay. Cool. Neato. And then with the sprite atlas, I imagine that you just have saved each individual box, essentially, of where each letter is. I noticed that this isn't even in order, because I guess maybe it's more efficient to not be. Although, I believe this has capital and lowercase letters, but they basically are the same. Like, the lowercase levels are like small caps. Also, I don't believe this has every single symbol. I mean, obviously, not every symbol, but like, just the common ones that I'm probably going to actually use, whatever. Yeah, I'll keep it around in case I need some fancy text. I just don't want all text in my UI to be more complex than it needs to be. Yeah, makes sense. But you're making a thing where you're trying to get as much optimization as you possibly can. So, yeah, makes sense. You do some things within that way. Yeah. Cool. As much optimization within reason. Sure, that's fair. Like, once you get to a point where it is running at the performance that you want, then it's like, cool, did it. It's good enough. Just like, I have to be wary in my game with, yeah, when I hit performance being a problem. Ideally, this game's gonna have pretty big levels with a lot going on, so we'll see at what point I start to have those kinds of performance issues. I'm already doing some stuff with additive scenes. Well, not in this scene specifically, but in the proper, like, hub world and going into levels, that's using additive scene stuff. So we'll see how much more I pay to do that. And even in a game, you'll have, like, stuff on the other side of the level has less going on, or, you turn off hazards, you turn off, like, visual effects, or at least have further away stuff doing less. We already, again, we've done a little bit of that, but definitely not. Surely not enough, though. I'm sure I'll run into once I get to things being more, but yeah, more more crazy as our levels grow and you make more stuff rather than just checkerboard fields. Then only if I can notice a latency, like if it's running at 2,000 plus FPS on my laptop, then optimizing for those buttons. For sure. Because there's a bunch of micro optimizations I technically do, and they all take time. Yeah. Yeah. Also, just the question of man hours put into making such optimization. Yeah, makes sense. How'd that get back up there? Oh, because I went in and out of play mode. Yes. That makes sense. Yeah, cool. Is that what? Just keep freeing my mouth. I think this is still slightly too loud. Not that it matters that much. I also only supported CPUs made after. CPUs made after 2011. Oh yeah, that's true. If you're trying to get stuff to work on multiple computers, then yeah, caring about how far back you're going, how far back you care about. So CPUs made earlier in 2011 will have an error thrown. What specific thing is being limited to CPUs from specifically 2011? Now I'm curious of what's the specific, why, where does that number come from specifically? I know when you're dealing with Unity, there's like certain Unity versions will have their thresholds of certain types of CPUs and whatnot. I don't know what those are specifically off the top of my head, but they're easily Googleable. I use AVX instructions. I can pretend that I know what that is. No, I have no idea what AVX means. The A stands for assembly, and I don't know. An X could be part of execute, even though that doesn't start with an X, but it can pretend it does. I'm guessing that some special thing that only modern CPUs can understand, or something along those lines. Modern as in 2011 and after, which isn't like the most modern, but yeah. Advanced vector extensions. I called the EX thing, the execute extensions, the X is a liar. I kind of called that. Didn't have the right word, but the right thought process. Advanced vector extensions. Yeah, sure. Interesting. Cool. That's also just word soup, and I don't fully understand the implications of such things. I have in school. Oh boy. Right. By the way, right here, this is problem numero uno with the camera. It doesn't like map the like forward direction of the camera onto vertical slopes at all. That no work. That is thing number one to solve by changing some stuff with the camera that I'll ramble about eventually. It expands most integer commands to 256 bits and introduces new instructions. Oh, right. Okay. Yeah. That's making some things click in my head of things I vaguely remember from school things that I did eons ago. Yeah, how many bits like instructions are, and yeah, CPUs on like certain bits they're mapped like for what they do specifically and how that translates into very specific types of instructions, or adding, like taking stuff, like saving stuff to a registry, like math things, and like shifting bits and like so saving, loading. Yeah. I vaguely remember such things. I'm going off of like the kind of simplified diagrams you learn of in schools before things get, and you get to the real world and things are a bajillion times more complex. Yeah. So in, for example, yawning, no. So in, for example, memory copies, I can move more data at once in fewer clock cycles than I did with other instructions. I know what clock cycles are. There are some computery things I'm aware of that I had to, spit out on exams and whatnot. And yeah, fewer clock cycle stuff takes. That's how fast making program run faster. And then faster CPUs, even like how many, both be able to have fewer total clock cycles, and then the amount of time that a clock cycle is also being shorter. Both of those things, yeah, you want to be a thing. The only thing stopping that is quantum physics, the speed of light. Nah, the speed of electricity. Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, cool. Very cool. But yeah, like, yeah, as I say, I do know a small thing here or there to do with some computer hardware stuff, but I'm definitely no computer hardware expert. Have my niche that is Unity related things, and well, some other stuff that I've done in school. I'm just realized that lighting on that isn't right. That's not how that should do. Oh no, I'm yawning so much. Also, I don't want I missed catching up with where I've also I don't want to make runtime checks and make two variants of the same function. Sure. So I just throw an error in the start, so I'm just gonna be lazy. I didn't fully understand that. So wait, I don't want to make runtime checks and make two. Move more data once if your clock cycles. If I do it with the other instructions, I don't want to make runtime checks and make two variants of the same function. So I'm just gonna throw an error in the start. I'm just gonna be lazy. All right, fair enough. If it works, it works. Get the end results that you want, then yeah. I don't know how far I'm gonna go with this player in terms of getting to be perfect, pristine, bug-free before I start trialing it in my submarine test level, which that might have to undergo some amount of revision. Well, maybe I'll have to see. I might be able to, like, at a base level, the player has a higher max speed now than they did before with this guy. So you're just taking that into account. I might just be able to take my blocked out bits of the level and just scale it up, and maybe that'll be good enough. We'll see. But but then potentially remapping or changing some bits of it to incorporate more of the funky physics that we're gonna have with going up walls and stuff. Although already the level was kind of made with some of that in mind. Like, ideally, there actually is going to be a pipe like this in the real level with hazards and a pipe that actually, like, bends and stuff. All of these were made as fast as I possibly could just to have these exist. Ideally with props for the like the environment of the actual first level. I'll be properly taking more time with such things, but yeah. I'm not gonna stop yawning. No. Anyway, so I've just been. Oh, that's the wrong one. Yeah, give me back my mouse. Okay. So yeah, if my function uses these more optimized functions, then the older processors can't. Hold on. Let me try that again. Yeah, if my function uses these more optimized instructions, then the older processors can't use them. Makes sense, sure. I don't want to get rid of instructions either, because then it'll be slower on my laptop. Sure. What I could do is check all these. What I could do is check if all the functions that use these instructions. Hold on. What I could do is check if all the functions that use the. Check if all the functions that use these instructions, which I don't even know how you check that kind of thing, but sure, cool. If that CPU supports it, then have one variant with the instructions and one without them, with their slower variants. Oh, I get what you mean now, I see. So to have older support with stuff, then yeah, using the slower thing, if it's the bare minimum of what it will work or not. Yeah, the way of going about that. That seems, yeah, interesting. Although I don't know if that's like leaping too far ahead. Yeah, well, I get, like, yeah, having a good foundation is good or whatever, but you want to more maybe get it to be just working on your machine first, and then once you're at that step, then doing more to have it work on other machines. Although I don't know if that's the best advice, because yeah, you want to have the good foundations in there, otherwise it can be more of a pain to change later. So I don't know what the correct course of action is in that case. This is how you check it in C++. Ooh. In C, that's code, yeah. CPU ID. Oh, it just straight up has an AVX supported. Oh wait, yeah. Oh, right. As you said, it has to do with how many bits an instruction can be. So it's just if it has the number. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Fair enough. Guess it's not as hard as I thought. I thought I'd be checking for if individual instructions existed, but no, just testing the AVX support in general. Makes sense. Fair enough. Cool. But it's too much work. Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, makes sense. And again, like you don't need your program to be supported on CPUs from before 2011 necessarily. You can if you want to. If it's cool to experiment with such things, then don't let me stop you. It would, yeah, and yeah, very cool to learn how to do such things. Yeah. Anywho, yeah. What time is it? It is, it's about 11. Nope, it'll also blow up my program. Yeah, to just, yeah, be longer. Makes sense. Yeah. Anywho, so I have completely lost my train of thought with what did I say? Camera stuff with my thing. Yeah. So first of all, today's stream probably isn't going to be super long because I do got to be up early tomorrow. So going into the stream expecting to. I want to keep the file size low. Yeah. I with my Ultra Tag game that I was working on as a school project back many months ago, back in my earliest streams. I had the scene. I had like the main scene that I had with that being 100. It was 100 megabytes, I believe, which is pretty big for a scene as bare bones as that scene looked, because it stored a whole lot of information with pathfinding calculations for how the CPUs run around and whatnot. But yeah, so yeah, that was massive, but the performance of it was great. It was very much an extreme example of trading time complexity for space complexity, which, yeah, was, again, just cool to mess around with, even though it wasn't the most optimal thing. And that is a project I hope to return to someday and play around more with. Hoping to use it as a guinea pig for learning like multiplayer networking stuff that I've never done in Unity before. That'll be cool when we get to it. I'll try to give my entire program under 1 megabyte when it's done, and that also includes the libraries. Yeah, cool. I have no idea how big my thing will be, but I guess that matters less for a Unity game. I know there's the trend nowadays of like, yeah, here's this small simple game or a AAA game, and it's 100 gigabytes. Have fun downloading that for 3 days. But yeah, I imagine I'll try for my game to be better as far as that goes. Since it's not massively huge, I think it'll be doable. Sure. It also depends on like how much you continue to add to it after you're done, like sort of the base level of what you want to accomplish with your program. As you then go beyond that, you added new features and all that stuff. How much more, yeah, higher file size it'll be, but yeah. Yeah, I'll need some file editing later. Yeah. Complex compression algorithms with all your like file atlases, sprite atlases, or whatever. Go super extreme into compressing every file as much as possible. Yeah. I also did a class that at one point covered, yeah, how very brief. Didn't go super far into it, but it was a small part of a class of covering how like some basic file compression stuff can work. I won't compress those unless I need to. Yeah, fair enough. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so I've made my own compressions before. Cool, very cool. I have, like, for the sake of school project stuff, done like the tiniest, most bare bones amount of that. Nothing too crazy, but you know. It was a simple compression algorithm, but it counts. Yeah, it counts. It counts. And yeah, you gotta start somewhere. Sure. Whoa. It was effective for what I used it for. Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. Okay, I'm curious that this came up again. Oh, I bet I know what this is. Right, this scene doesn't have any of the UI. I think I hid the normal UI that would pop up or something. Or maybe it's slightly off screen and there's code. Maybe with the strikes or something. Some codes thinking I pressed the, like, continue to, like, I think go from being in a, yeah, Win UI. The Win UI, something's trying to trigger the Win UI that shouldn't be able to, because this scene is not a so-called proper scene. So that error isn't super important because it's not something in theory that would happen in a so-called real level. I still probably have more error checking or whatever, but meh. I feel like for my bad words. I feel like for my let me try that again. But I feel like for the fonts, I could make my own file format. Oh, it'd be cool to mess around with it. Yeah, sure. Why not? Do you think it could work? Like bitmaps, since they have very few colors, I could bitpack them since they have very few colors, I could bitpack them to an extreme extent. Your fonts are gonna have few colors. Wait, so are you gonna hard code the colors into your fonts because like you're only gonna have like, oh, here's a font for like, or is it like one color or only like 2 or 3, so you're just hard coding each of those things. So that stuff can also be stored with the font information, perhaps. Yeah, cool if you can do such things. So the color would only be stored once, and then so the color would only be stored once, and then it's just an index for each pixel. Okay, that works too. Yeah, fair enough. And then yeah, of course, then the font would just be black and white. I'm also gonna lower this, I think. And then for rendering the letter, I'll make an array of floats. Then for rendering the letter, I'll make an array of floats to how each character is mapped to the quad. For each letter, I'll make an array of floats to how each character is mapped to the quad. So I can just read the float value off of the array in one operation, like UV mapping. Okay, sure. I think I get it. Yeah, cool. Goes from 0 to 1. I am familiar with some UV mapping stuff. I haven't done a whole heap of like actual proper texturing, as you can see here. Most stuff is just like single solid colors. I mean, all this is like testing stuff, so it makes sense to not go super hard into that. The unicycle itself isn't perfect. The unicycle itself here is still kind of like a placeholder sort of thing. Ideally, the real thing's gonna look better, but it's a pretty good start. It's more than just like you know, cubes and stuff. Where is the unicycle over here? But this does have some texture things. This unicycle tool, yeah. This be the UV mapped texture stuff on the unicycle. I don't remember exactly how I made it. I believe I didn't like paint this in Photoshop. I believe I did stuff in Blender that like auto kind of generated the texture that was then like baked to a file, if I remember correctly, which does have some like artifacts to it, which, you know, again, it's still like a more of a placeholder kind of thing, but ideally, eventually that stuff will be ironed out. I don't know, like the real proper thing. I don't know what it's gonna look like. The character itself still needs to actually be made. This was just a placeholder I made as quickly as possible. It doesn't even move. The unicycle, the pedals move, and like that's cool and all. So the fewer calculations, the better. Yes. Optimization be good, and games that run poorly not be so good. But yeah, with the player, still eventually got to actually make this guy, which is a whole thing that we'll get to eventually. I have rough ideas for what I want this character to look like, but nothing concrete decided on, and a lot of what I'm still figuring out is more like what they need to look like for the sake of the gameplay, and like making sure the model works with how certain things I need to happen as far as gameplay is concerned, such as their leg being long enough to perfectly reach from seat to pedal. But then again, the unicycle itself will also probably change. The game itself is meant to have a slightly sci-fi vibe, so the unicycle itself might eventually have more sci-fi stuff going on. We'll see. The guy's like a handyman, so they might have like some kind of like toolbox on him or something like that. Like those kind of details would be cool. But yeah, still ironing stuff out. I said before, I'll say it again. My current plans for the demo involve me having to make 5 different characters, 5 human models for this demo, and somehow there's 3 of them I have pretty good ideas for, sort of. One is very not so planned in terms of what they're going to look like, but another one I'm kind of waiting on some gameplay stuff to be planned first before I then plan what they're going to look like based on what I need for the gameplay of them. And then there's the player here that's kind of in the same sort of boat. But yeah, which then I don't know if I might start with the first human character I make in this game being not our actual main character, start by making some of the other people as I sort of fine-tune the style and the art style, and getting things to be consistent, and let them be the guinea pigs as I iron them out. And then once I've settled on some more things, then taking my newfound skill and applying it to the actual player person, because the player model is in theory the most important model in the game, and the one that needs to be the best in theory. But still, yeah, even in getting to all that visual, getting to the point of doing all that visual stuff is still a far way away, especially that I've reverted back to just placeholder sphere and cylinder. That soon I'll put back to at least looking like how the other one does. But I wanted to go back to just basically matching what the colliders of this player look like. It's just easier to then be remaking a lot of the physics of how the player works, and just, yeah, make it easier for testing and whatnot. Especially with all these slopes and whatnot, and how aerial movement still I want to do a whole lot with. Currently, actually, you can't move in the air. That's not going to be a forever thing. That's just stuff I haven't properly... It's something that's like temporary that will eventually be... yeah, we're going to do more to mess with. One thing I want to do that I think, if I can pull it off, I think it'll visually look pretty cool, is that when you're in midair, especially coming off of a wall, I want you, like the unicycle, so the black part there, to be angled based on your velocity. So as you're flying through the air, having the actual unicycle itself arc as you're going through the air, which will both, in theory, look cool, because visually, it doesn't have to be the guy is sideways. He could be like grabbing onto the side, like it's, you're launched through the air so fast that he's like grabbing onto the unicycle as his legs are flailing behind him, as like the wheel part is in front of him going through the air. That could just look visually cool as an animation. But then functionally wise, having the bottom of the wheel facing the way that you're going, it'll then be easier that you could be flying through the air and sort of land on a wall and then keep going along that wall. And I think that could be, has the potential to be very cool if I can pull that off. So like making that happen is on the list of modifications to this player that needs to be done, but it is not at the top of that list because there are other things that are more needing to be done. Like I for now, I'm more focusing on movement when you're actually on the ground or against a surface, so also including going up slopes. Getting that to be fully ironed out, and then taking that to aerial movement next. But being kind of having in mind what I'm gonna do with that before I dig myself into a hole and then being like, oh no, this thing isn't gonna work this way. Oh no. Speaking of that, the camera is a case like that. Currently, yeah, this is a big old problem that happens with the camera. When you go up slopes, so right now when the player move, oh, there's like a bit of jittering. Yeah, a lot of jittering that needs to be sorted out. But currently, at least the player can't fall over. This player, wherever it went, this one over here, had its own physicsy problems of that. It's possible for this one to actually fully fall over and then just sort of get launched because of how the physics with it work, and like that's not good. This player has the potential to be more stable. It currently isn't because it's just not done. But this player is a lot more unstable than it looks. But this player has the potential to be a lot more, stable. But also cooler with more of the slope physics going on. Anyways, what I was saying, oh, and also right now this one doesn't lean. This guy leans. I'm hoping to bring back the leaning. That's like on the list as well. So a lot of what like the old player has that's better will eventually be back on this player. So like this player bobs up and down slightly. Or you don't. Maybe turn that off. He used to bob up and down slightly. This one will do that. The turning, the leaning, and that. Yeah, all that will be back on the player, the current player eventually. But yeah, what was I saying? So right now, camera movement on slope. How it's often done in like a lot of games, I imagine, is that you take the camera and you sort of project the camera on like the flat. To have the player move in the direction of the camera, where forward is this way rather than universal forward, you take the camera's forward direction and apply the movement that way. But making it so that if you look down versus looking forward, that's not going to affect the speed of the player. You sort of flatten it against the ground, and then, yeah, you move forward relative to the ground. And that works fine in like 90% of games where you move. I have special things going on in my game where you can move up slopes. Where going uphill isn't the unusual thing. The fact that you can go fully sideways and go fully going upwards and through loop-de-loops and stuff be fully upside down, that is introducing more problems where this flattening thing isn't working. Because right now, when I'm perfectly sideways, it's trying to map the camera forward to flat, or even flat against the wall, and somehow currently with the way it is, it's coming up with only left or right for some reason, because physics. No, because math is hard. So I've been trying to conceptually figure out how to solve this problem, and been doing lots of Googling. That's been hard to figure out exactly a good solution to my problem, but I know 100% that it's possible, because it's just a matter of figuring out the math. I had planned how I was going to ramble about this, and now I'm, like, forgetting my past preparation for rambling. But, So, to solve this problem, conceptually, and then figure out the math of how I want to, how to actually implement what it is I want to do, there are two things that I'm considering doing with the camera. There's two ways that I can, do stuff with the camera. Keep the camera flat against the ground so that if I do this loop-to-loop, let's say like from this, if I'm holding right, I do the whole loop-to-loop, I go sideways, upside down, over, down, and over. The camera itself doesn't move relative to the ground. If I move it with the mouse, like, or the right control stick, that's one thing. But in this case, the camera doesn't necessarily, like, option one is, with that, I figured out how to map the input better to the ground, sort of turn it onto whatever surface that we're on, and then make it work so that, if I go in this full loop, it works like how you'd intuitively expect it to. But that has some issues. Before I get into there's the two solutions that I have, and their own pros and cons that have a lot of edge cases that make them tricky. That's option one. Option two is to actually turn the camera. If I'm going sideways like this, I am considering messing with the idea of taking the camera and doing one of It's not gonna work unless I... Actually, let me just... Hold on. Bleh. And then doing one of these. Actually turning the camera... This isn't gonna stay, is it? No, it's gonna undo immediately, of course it will. Hold on. Hold on. Bleh. Actually turning the camera as the player goes through loops could also be cool, and then it almost directly solves the problem of then, like, forward relative to the camera is just always the forward that you'd expect, which should then map a lot easier for me. Although, getting the camera to turn with the player has its own issues. But I don't know if going down this route would be a problem in terms of, like, motion sickness or whatever. Because there are some games that do that kind of thing of having the camera rotate as you go, like, up and down things or whatever. But that sometimes happens in slower games. An example, I don't have a video pulled up. Do I want to quickly find it? I will, off to the side, quickly pull up a video that explains my point while I continue to ramble. Some games that do this kind of thing, often you're moving a lot slower. In this game, the player moves fast, so sudden camera changes are going to happen faster. Hold on. An example... No, that's not what I want. Hold on. I know a specific example in a specific game that perfectly articulates what I'm talking about. If I can just... where are you? Aha! Okay. So, don't mind me stealing some gameplay footage of some random YouTuber as a part of my Googling. So this is Ratchet and Clank 1, and a mechanic that only happens like 3 or 4 times in the entire game is you get magnet boots and then you go on these kind of walls where you're magnetized to them. And effectively I want the same thing. I both want, like, you have the momentum of going up walls and going sideways, but I also want to straight up have an obstacle that is magnet walls that you can literally, like this, be on a surface sideways and be sticking to it, so if you stop moving, you actually stay on it, rather than on normal surfaces. If you have momentum, you'll go up and sideways and whatever, but if you slow down too much, then you'll fall off. But I do want to have straight up, yeah, make a surface like this. In this game, it moves the camera. It turns the camera to, like, match the floor that you're on, which is fine. It works here. That's not an issue or whatever. But, like, applying this to my game, like, this is slow. This character moves relatively, especially on the magnet surfaces, you move a lot slower than in my game, where you'll have a lot more momentum and speed or whatever. So I don't know if turning the camera fast to, like, match these surfaces, I don't know if that'll be a problem. Secondary problem in this game, when you're on these magnet surfaces, when you fall off, or I don't think you could fall off, I don't remember off the top of my head. I think you're forced to stay on the path. I think if you get attacked by an enemy, maybe you fall off? I don't remember off the top of my head, and I'm not gonna, like, pull up the game right now. Yeah, let's do a let's play of this game, just to get to this level, just so I can mess around with it. No, I don't even have, I have the game on PS2, but I'd have to, like, I don't have the cords for that. Nor do I have the time to get a PS2 emulator set up when do the same thing, but whatever. Anyways, that's not the point. So I don't remember if you can actually just walk off these or not. If you can, then I don't know if the camera just instantly snaps around or if it, like, bends or not. But, like, that's the thing to consider. In my game, you're upside down, you can fall off. Should the camera immediately snap down to being, you know, down or not? I don't know. Because that has its own issues. If I turn the camera smoothly, then it might not. If the camera is moving really fast, if the player is moving really fast in a loop, if the player is moving super fast in one of these loops and the camera doesn't snap around fast enough, then we're gonna have the same issue. If the player is turned on a wall like 90 degrees more than the camera currently is, then we're gonna have the same movement problem where it does this and the input doesn't work right and it, you know, it not good. But if it snaps immediately, then it might be, you know, too fast of movement. And then, okay, what happens when then you go to midair? Should it snap immediately? It could. As I said, there might be a mechanic where you can, like, I could potentially get launched off a spring and now be flying through the air and land on this wall midair and run along the wall a little bit. We're on a unicycle, but I'll say you wall run for a bit and then fall off or something. During that wall run, should the camera immediately snap sideways? That is in this solution is what it would need to do for the input to work in that solution. So like some of the pros and cons of that is like, yeah, will it work or will it be too fast, too snappy? But the pros of it is that it would look really cool. It might look cooler for the camera to be more shaky. Even on slopes, that means that if I did that, it would also affect slopes. If I'm on a slight slope, the camera will turn slightly, which might just look cool, perhaps. Although I could have some threshold. If you're on like a small slope that the camera doesn't turn, only when you know, turned a certain amount, then that camera turning kicks in. Like, I can control such things. Although I don't know if that would look weird for it to not bend, and then suddenly bend. I don't know if that would look weirder. It's like stuff that's like in my head. I'm like, okay, I have a rough idea of how this would work and what this would look like, but I have to do more to actually implement it to see. So that was option B. I guess I rambled on all the pros and cons of option B before. To option A, camera doesn't turn, but I figure out how to properly map the inputs better. See, once I get, yeah, okay, that's, once I make it to upside down, then it works-ish, where forward is the direction that I'd expect. Like, I go forward and back is to the camera. But then, this is its own problem, is, that's introduced, is if we're upside down, and the camera, the whole camera zoom thing I have going on, of like when there's geometry in the way, right now it's actually not working. It should be zooming in fully, and that's supposed to be the problem there. I actually don't know why it's not. But just pretending that it's zooming in. Then this causes a zoom problem of, if you're upside down and the camera is not, then you have like the ceiling kind of in the way, and that seems to pose problems. Especially if you're on like a flat surface, then that can maybe be fine. If in this scenario, the camera actually should be down more. When I messed with the camera zoom code, it doesn't seem to work perfectly upside down land, but it should. So the camera itself, realistically, in this scenario, would be pulled down more, so it'd be less obstructing than it currently looks. But yeah, this option has problems with just not being able to see, because in theory, in order to be able to see, if I do this, let's see if I can get past this, like, barrier of when I can control again. Yeah. So, okay, I have to just fiddle with my own code just to get up here. As soon as I get up here, then I in theory wouldn't be able to see unless I move the camera down like this. And there's just more player input that has to happen to make this solution kind of work properly. And then, but that's not the worst part. That's not the worst part. I could maybe do some camera magic to make that part work. The hardest part of that is that the input is not consistent for how it needs to be mapped. If I'm upside down like this, if I can cheat it. If I'm upside down, right now, forward is going down the loop and back is going up the loop, because it is being towards and away from the camera. However, if I'm at the start of this loop and I'm holding forward, you would think what would make most intuitive sense to the player, if you're playing like a Sonic game and you're going through a loop, I should hold forward and make it through the whole loop and then be going forward. That's what the player, I think would intuitively expect to happen, is that I shouldn't have to be holding forward and then now be holding backwards and then now be holding forwards to make the loop. Like, that's too clunky, I would think. Which then means that introduces a scenario where if I'm holding forward, I'm pretending that, like, I get up there fine, like, ignoring that part. I would now be holding forward and should be expecting to move towards the camera, which is different than if I was, like, on, like, a magnet surface where I'm allowed to come to a complete stop. Then if I hold forward, then I would expect to be going, towards, forward to go away from the camera. So that's introducing a scenario where the slope that I'm on is not the only factor in what input does. I'd have to look at, like, what the input was last frame and, like, what direction I was moving last frame, and that would, like, somehow I'd have to be like, if we were holding forward and then we start to, bend upside down, to some degree we're, like, inverting what input does. But then if we're mid going upside down in a loop and then we hit left to right, like, then how should that behave? Should that also be inverted or not? Basically what I'm getting at is that this solution poses a lot more weird issues. It gets funkier in weird ways. I mean, it's technically doable because I know that games have done this before. As an example, a game that I wanted to actually look at some gameplay of at some point to like to see. You know, I'll look at gameplay of Sonic Unleashed. I look at gameplay of Ratchet and Clank. I can find this. So old games, like early 2000s. Sonic Adventure 1. I want to look at. Speed Highway. I know that in this game, hold on. I want to find. I don't think. Problem with looking at a video of random gameplay, I might not find the footage that I actually want of specific. Because right now I'm doing a lot of testing. I mean, there was a loop-to-loop. I'm doing a lot of edge cases. A lot of what is sort of the problems here with all of these camera things. A lot of these weird edge cases that I got to cover. But I got to make sure that they do work. Otherwise, we are going to have problems. But a second ago at the beginning of this, you go through a loop. You hold forward. You, the player, I believe, you're holding forward and you make the loop. You're not, as I said, you're not going to go pull back or whatever. But this, the camera stays forward. Now, in a case like this, I believe, I mean, the camera it pulled away for like a cool angle. My game currently doesn't do that. And I don't know if it will, but in theory, I want the code to work without fancy camera shots. Like, I could have some stuff where, I override the camera and have it pull away or whatever. I don't want to be locked into having to do that for every single bit of slope that happens, or every single, like, loop or wall. Ideally, I want the code to, at least at a basic level, work without those fancy camera shots. And if I do those fancy, like, oh, pull away so you can better see the loop, that's more of a bonus thing, where if that wasn't there, the code would still function. Here though, so this, running on wall. This is the case. I'm on the wall, then the camera isn't sideways, but forward is that way, left. Actually, I'm trying to remember from like last time I played this. I believe in a case like this, I'm having to be hold like kind of this way to be running along the wall, and I believe like an up left kind of that then actually does move up the wall or whatever. The control is, it's a little, the exact directions are a little bit funky, but you can kind of learn them, I guess. And then it's consistent to some degree. But okay, I'm looking for. I don't care about the running on flat ground. I'm looking for specifically footage of running on walls and upside down and that kind of stuff. And so like this, a crazy corkscrew like that. Like that's the kind of thing that I want my unicycle code to be able to handle going on something like this with however the camera behaves and have it work. But in this, I do know that this game also cheats. In that, in a loop like this, you're not having to dodge hazards or anything. It's just a cool, like, ooh, do the loop. So I know that in cases like this, it kind of does, as long as you have the speed, it like hijacks how the player moves. And I believe internally it's something along the lines of like, it has sort of a spline path set up, and you just kind of forcefully move along the spline as long as you're holding input. So I don't think you can even turn around in this. I believe if you held backwards, you'd still be moving, I believe. Something along those lines. And this is like, an older game. Like, if I looked at like Sonic Unleashed or something, I imagine, stuff is more robust and maybe less cheaty. With that. But like in this game, it does what it needs to work, to function, and it does it well enough. And then here you have running down a wall. This is like a special bit of gameplay that like the controls are a bit different, like where you're constantly moving forward, you can only go left or right, and but again, like mapping the controls, mapping pressing forward on a controller or W on a keyboard, and based on how the camera is, the way the player thinks that they should move. I said a second ago, in a case like this weird loop thing, corkscrew thing, it to some degree cheats and whatever. I want my unicycle character to be able to do a corkscrew like this. Maybe not exactly like this, but like going up walls and being upside down and doing this, but not cheating it. Having this, that you are the player are moving and in the direction that you want to be moving, and then it's working. And then also while you're mid upside down, as long as you have the speed to stay on that surface, being able to swerve around hazards and stuff. I want that to be a thing that's capable of happening. So I want that to be able to happen, that I need that if you're turning around, essentially, not a full turnaround. I feel like if you're moving and then you turn around, then you'd probably drop off. Like, it'd be a velocity thing. If your velocity goes below a certain amount, then we make you fall off the wall. Oh, that'd be pretty, generous, I'd imagine. Or if you get hit by a hazard, that would also probably immediately knock you off. But I want you to be able to be upside down and be able to move around, so that having input work with that, and also in a way that is intuitive to the player playing the game in what direction they think they should be moving based on what's going on. So, that all being said, I think that it would intuitively... Oh, do I have the... I don't know the footage. Let me just... finding that... Finding this part of where the manual thing was. Yeah, over here. I think this solution, where the camera sticks to the slope, essentially, would make the most intuitive sense to the player, in that, like, forward is always forward, back is always back, left is always left, right is always right. And, like, there's no changing with that. It doesn't matter if you were, like, in the other solution, like, with the other way of, like, oh, if I was in the middle of holding a button, having to be mapped differently depending on, like, if I'm doing a loop and then now I'm moving towards the camera, but, like, now up is towards the camera rather than away from the camera. I think it sorts out a lot of that stuff. And like, saying all this out loud, I think that the calculations for this would, in theory, be easier. Hopefully. We're gonna find out. But then in this, actually, I just want to see when in this when it does the slope. Oh, that's a whole other thing. I do gotta worry about when you do when you do these, like, outer slopes going like this, the camera's fine and unobstructed by anything. When you have a slope do this, there's a chance that as the camera then needs to turn down, this wall being in the way and then causing the camera to have to zoom in a bit. And I don't know how much that's going to be an issue. But it seems like by default, without extra stuff to try and, cheat to make it look nice, both solutions would, for the scenario of doing a loop-to-loop like this or thinner, both solutions have problems that will make the camera have to zoom in to some degree. If the camera stays facing the ground, then we're going to have this zooming in because of the top of the loop, and then it'll fix itself once you go down. If we do the solution where the camera zooms with you, like where it sticks to the slope as you go up to the slope, it'll essentially do something like this, then yeah, it's going to zoom in a bit from the ground. But looking at this, I think that's better. That's a better scenario. Now, currently it doesn't, it doesn't go fully upside down. And then the camera is more automated in that, like, I, the player, don't have to move the camera down and around. You'll be able to better see as I'm going through slopes. Like this example, the camera is, in theory, turning more, like, automatically or whatever. In this game, because this game, there's also more of that, sort of smoothing going on. But again, though, I don't know how much, if I do it this way, this game, you physically are moving slower, so it's okay for the camera to, in that time, smoothly moving. In this, if I'm doing a loop super fast, and the camera doesn't smoothly turn around fast enough, then I might have some input problems like this. So there might need to be some world where I do a bit of both solutions, where I do, have the camera turn all the way, but in case the camera's a bit slow and I want that sort of smooth turning of camera, then maybe, I don't know, doing more to map the input to whatever slope I'm on. Well, this only happens, the input only gets funky when I've turned more than 90 degrees from the camera pivot, which is right now facing the ground, as far as, or actually I forget, like, vector 3 dot down, effectively. Once I get 90 degrees away from that, that's currently where it messes up. And then soon that'll be 90 degrees away from where the camera is currently smoothly, where it has turned so far from trying to keep up with whatever slope that we're on. So, like, in theory, could be fine. It might be fine. What I could also do, another thing to help smooth out those problems, is I could maybe try to be like, if we're on a slope, like if I did the instantaneous movement, bam, here's where the camera would turn. in an ideal world where the smoothing is like infinite. And like, okay, that's where the camera should be, and now here's where it is to slowly become being there. I can then look at that ideally optimized position and maybe go off of that for the input direction, and then it would be perfect. I don't know if any of what I'm saying is making sense, but it's making just enough sense to me to be able to potentially actually, you know, make this thing. But again, it's also a whole different ball field of conceptually thinking of how I'm going to do these things, and then actually getting into the nitty-gritty of the code actually make this happen. Because turning the bottom like the camera pivot that I have going on to with a slope and not messing up the way that it was currently facing, because the slope that I'm on doesn't have a forward direction necessarily. Like the forward direction that the camera would need to have with angling itself to whatever slope. Like, no. The more I speak out loud, the more I am. I think it might be fine. I guess some of this I might just have to like experiment with trying to code and see what new unexpected problems I run into more than what I've already said. Whether weird unexpected things will happen. Right now my biggest worry with this proposed solution is the idea of if I go off some kind of spring or like ramp or whatever and then I'm flying through midair and then land on this wall and wall run on this wall for a bit, the camera having to instantly snap to a side. I just don't know if the math will work properly to turn the camera right and be still facing the way that I expect it to, and it's not going to suddenly fling around 180 or whatever. Yeah, and I gotta... Yeah, figure out how that's going to work. Right now, the camera pivot is set up so that it has, like, the camera pivot, and then the camera itself, and then other things that don't matter right now, because there's, like, a few cameras that render a few different things with the actual gameplay. Mainly, one that renders the UI, some of this stuff, and then one that renders, and then like the pause screen and whatnot, and then one that renders some like sprites that are in the environment that I want it to be like on top of everything. When rides are breaking, they have these little damage circles, and I want you to be able to see them kind of X-ray style through walls and stuff. Anyways, that's not important though. So you have, the camera pivot with all these text things. That's part of the UI. And this camera pivot, this turns from mouse input. So either this needs to have some extra turning that happens, or I need an additional parent object that these are all under that then angles itself to slope. But I just don't know if I can... The math of doing that without messing with the cameras, tricky. But, like, literally, this game did it. It did what I'm trying to do, albeit in different game engine with different, like, game made a long, long time ago with a different technology. I've already done some brief Googling on this kind of idea, but like I haven't found a great method of execution in terms of the actual code, and I don't know why. Like, making a camera in a game is making a camera follow a player, and this idea of this camera pivot thing is a super common thing to do, and getting that camera input to be mapped to getting that getting that input to like angle itself based on the camera input rather than just being universal forward, or rather than being based on just the player's itself's internal forward direction. Lots of videos on that kind of thing. I've done that kind of thing before. I do have a tutorial on that. But going this extra step that seems to be very uncommon of going to be like, rather than being up slopes, going like fully, completely up walls and whatnot. Seems hard. Seems like it's not something that like I've been able to find a lot of resources on to do it in the way that I'm trying to do it, with all the cares and considerations of my specific game and the needs that it has, with, again, like, player goes fast, so less time to, move the camera smoothly and whatnot. The player doesn't move, and the player can get up to a pretty high speed, but I think that in the case of a real level, with how much hazards there's going to be, it would be rare for you to get, not impossible, but rare for you to be going this fast unless you're like really good at swerving around hazards. Ideally, you're going to be like, gotta go around this thing, and going off this ramp, and going around these things. So you're not like reaching that top speed that often in theory. And then, if you're getting hit by hazards and then coming to basically a complete stop as you do. This area is very, you know, open because it's just a simple test level. A real level will be filled to the brim with obstacles and hazards and all that. I mean, in this case, obstacles and hazards are almost synonyms. I just like obstacles is in like hazards like that will hurt you like cannons and ooh, lava and whatever. But then also things like, oh, go up a magnetized, like go up a magnet wall, or go launch off a spring, or, you know, go off this ramp to clear this gap. Yeah, count that stuff as obstacles, even if it's not like, not all that's detrimental to the player. It's still just a thing between you and your goal. But anywho, so that stuff, yeah. So having talked both those solutions out loud, I think that solution B is the one that I'm going to try to go for, and then we'll see if it works or not, or if I'll have to go back to the drawing board. Yeah, the idea of having the camera itself actually turn based on slopes. Because again, it could also look cool. It might look cool to turn based on slopes. I don't know if we'll have a problem of like a player having not like remembering like what way is universal down. I don't imagine that'll be that much of a problem when we have an actual proper environment. I did notice that in Ratchet and Clank, when you are sideways, there is a bit of like, right now you are sideways. A better shot is on this surface. The player actually does hang a little bit, although in this case you're actually like, you can come to a complete stop. So I have these proper like fully like magnetized walls where you're able to come to a complete stop, and it's not just like Sonic where you're running along the surface because of momentum. In this, you're still like angled slightly towards the ground, and I don't know if I might keep that kind of a thing. We'll see. I mean, right now I'm not too worried about that. That's more of a visual thing that doesn't affect like the physics. That's why again, why I stripped back the model and Unicycle and went back to just working with like placeholder stuff, or even more placeholder than this was, because I wanted to just purely focus on the movement and the physics and getting that perfect, and then making the proper graphical stuff on top of this. But yeah, it's a lengthy process. Like, I am trying to do something that is quite difficult and advanced, and I'm aware of that. But I think I can handle it, hopefully. And it will be very, very, very cool once we can get onto the other side. And it'll be, and lead to a much better game, I'm hoping, rather than if we had continued with the player as they were before. Because most of the game is movement. It's about the movement and the swerving around hazards. There's eventually, there's like the strategy component of the rides that are breaking. You gotta time manage like which ones to go to first, and then spending the time to repair the shortcuts while not spending too much time on that, then you're failing the normal level stuff. Introducing like in the middle of the level, like, hey, you're on the submarine, hey, all these leaks happened, you gotta now go fix those too, have fun with that. Like having stuff change in the middle level, you gotta think on your feet of get around new hazards that introduce. Like, yeah, cool things with them as well with the moment-to-moment gameplay. But the movement itself is the most important thing. Like a game like Mario 64 and whatnot, that, yeah, that is a very good game for its time and whatnot, revolutionary, blah, blah, blah. The movement itself has to be fun and enjoyable. In that game, you have all the crazy jumps you can do. In this game, it is on purpose, it is still on purpose that you cannot jump, because I want to mess around with, the cool movement that can happen with not jumping and having to use momentum and whatnot to get where you want to go, which this test level doesn't have the best example of those kind of things. That'll more like show up when we have like more springs and you just like the stuff here actually functioning better, such as these loop-de-loops, but having to actually use like ramps and stuff to get where you want to go. I don't know how much I'd have stuff like this where it's like, oh, you want to get up on that ledge, you actually have to go like up here and like launch off at this weird angle. I don't know how much I'd rely on that or not. I don't know, that's kind of stuff I'd have to just mess around with and just see. But, like, the fact that you can, if you have enough speed, go up walls, essentially. You wouldn't go up a wall like this, but a wall like this, as long as there's this slight bend. In theory, you should rocket up this wall, and then can use that to launch around, and that should be cool. Or if there's just literally anything that can get you height here. If any kind of spring or whatever should be able to use that aerial momentum to get onto the wall and then run the rest of the way up it. Like, that should be things that should be allowed to happen. And yeah, in theory will be very cool once it's all functional. Yeah, still got a lot to go to get there. And right now the next immediate step is just figure out the camera stuff, getting the camera to cooperate better, to Because in theory, right now with the way the player currently moves, once the camera properly handles this, the player should be able to move up this wall currently no problem. Now, right now, there's nothing that, like, if you stop, like, I basically turned off gravity for now. Not when you're properly in the air, but just to properly, like, test the sideways and upside down movement, I basically turned off, like, that you don't fall on walls. Like, that's temporary. Although, this is basically the movement that you can expect when you're on a magnetized wall. So, like, that's important to, like, yeah, have both of those. I did have an idea. An obstacle that could be cool is to have, like, you're going along a wall and parts of it are magnetized and parts of it aren't. So you can come to a rest stop on the parts that are all magnet-y and then have to go fast between the parts that aren't, or else you'll fall off. And going from part to part with obstacles that you gotta dodge. Like, that's a cool example of a hazard that I want to see if we can do. And yeah, stuff like that. But yeah, I have ideas, and hopefully they will turn out well. But there's still, yeah, with this player, there is still a lot of ironing out to be done. Even stuff like, yeah, how they behave on these slopes and whatnot. And all the mid-air stuff. Part of what makes that weird, yeah, the how they work in mid-air. There's also, right now, as I said, there's no falling. On a slope like this, I should be, if I'm letting go with the buttons, rolling down the slope. That should happen. There is, I believe, that... Oh. Yeah, actually, I'm noticing now that I swear this worked better before. I seem to be losing more speed than I should be there. And actually, I'm not immediately sure why. So that's stuff I'll have to investigate. And aerial movement is not where it should be at the moment either. I want, like, as you do in games, being able to move in midair. Although, I don't think I want complete control in midair. I want that, like, if you go off a ramp with a lot of speed... then you, if you go off a ramp with a lot of speed, then, like, you're, you know, being launched in that direction. I don't want you to be able to 180 in midair necessarily. But yeah, we'll see. I kind of also wanted to have that if you're falling for a while, you animation-wise go into more of like a skydiving kind of animation. Would be cool. And then maybe then the input could change a little bit more for that if you go through like this happens in some Sonic games. You go through a section where you're falling for a while, and you're looking like straight down and having to move around to dodge things. Like that would also be cool, but not my highest priority because that's more special, fancy stuff that wouldn't, you know, like getting the movement on the ground is the more important thing to get fully functioning work. To get fully functioning first, it's just a matter of actually writing the code to do it. It's much easier said than done, but I'm getting there. Yeah, it's coming along. Oh, how is it? How's it already 11:50 already? Whoops. Oh yeah, there's also just this. That doesn't work super well. That's yeah, the zoom code I also modified a little bit. It's yeah, not has some issues. If I'm perfectly still, that shouldn't be happening. But, yeah. Lots of stuff to iron out, but we are getting there. I just gotta find the time to actually work on this is also a thing. But, anyways, it is 11:50. Unfortunately, with all my rambling, I kind of run out of time. I was hoping that... Well, I did go into this knowing this would be a super short stream. That's why I was like... discussing a camera overhaul was just like... Yeah, I knew it would be mostly me rambling about... the camera stuff and trying to come up with a proper decision. Oh yeah, I did. Right. I did start to mess around with that plan B when I came up with the idea of it. I did a bit of messing around. Although most of this, actually basically all of this, is just the code copied from the normal camera turn script. Yeah, the code was basically the same, except the other bit was commented out, so still got a lot more to mess around with that. So I imagine between now and the next time I'm working on this game, because I don't fully know coding-wise how I'm gonna do this, I still gotta figure that out. I imagine I'm gonna do that next step on my own. I like when I'm doing more streams when I'm actually coding stuff to actually know what I'm doing and just doing that, which I imagine will happen a lot more once we're through all this character stuff, and then I'm back to making like. When we're working on like our first proper level with the submarine thing, like making the specific hazards for that and testing those out. Now, that'll be cool. making all the visual environmental stuff for that will be hard, but it'll be good to sort out a proper system for how exactly, like, my sort of method of making levels in terms of actually constructing the environments I need for the levels and, like, hazards and like, in Blender, like, how much in a Blender scene, like, how much stuff I have per Blender file, like, you know, if I have a cliff, or if I have some grassy landscape, is each individual rock a Blender file? Is each flower a Blender file that I then pull over and duplicate around a bunch? Or is, like, an entire, like, cliff 1, cliff 2, like, are those how I split the Blender files? Like, stuff like that, I still gotta narrow down exactly how I'm doing that. Oh, I don't think I mentioned, I showed this at the very beginning of the stream. I didn't finish rambling about it, I don't think. This was my attempt at having, like, the thing I have below the stream, but like a Halloween version of it. Why are you taking so long to go into play mode? But I'm not perfectly happy with it right now. Before, like, you think Halloween, you think just orange and black are Halloween colors, but I wanted to try to have more variety than just 2 colors, so I made, like, orange and black is, like, most of what's here, but then I have a little bit of, like, a purple, because it's a little bit Halloween-y, and then, like, a kind of a dark yellow, because, like, you know, just more variety or whatever. But, yeah, I don't know if I'm fully settled on this before I putting it in, below the stream thing. Oh, that also is webcam, like, a little bit. Unity! Why? Anyway, so I might do a bit more playing around with this, and then maybe in the next stream, then I'll have this replacing Glow for the rest of October or something. I do think the next stream I'm doing will be going back to playing Lost in Random, or I might split it up where, like, short. I don't think I'll have that much time for a stream, like an hour or 2, then I'll do more coding stuff, which I don't even know what that's going to be, because I guess the next stream would, in theory, be working on this camera stuff, but I don't fully know what I'm doing with this camera stuff, and I expect it to be tricky and difficult and running into a lot of problems, but we'll see. But then if I have more time for, like, a longer stream, then I'll be back playing Lost in Random and finishing off that game. It was very great, and yeah, we are, I think, it's hard to even give an estimate of how far I am through it. Somewhere between 60 and 80% through the game is my estimate, I think. But I could be very wrong. But then also, ideally I'd like to 100% the game and get all the achievements or whatever, which I haven't looked at the achievements, and I don't know what exactly that will entail. And whether that will require a full second playthrough. But yeah, I'll figure that out when I get there, because spoilers and stuff. But anyways, so yeah, okay, so yeah, I unfortunately, I do need to go. I did know going into this I needed to go before midnight, because I gotta be up early tomorrow, and yeah, can't be up till 3 a.m. as I have been in the last couple of streams. but next time, yeah, we'll see. Yeah, today's Wednesday going into Thursday. Yes, I know days. Okay, so yeah, we're gonna end things off for now. So we didn't, like, do a whole lot, but I just got a bunch of rambling out of the way, and then just having one stream that was kind of doing programming stuff as a refresher from doing the game stuff, and then now we're going back into that. I guess the next couple streams will be ideally finishing off Lost in Random, and then behind the scenes I might be doing more with this camera stuff. I did. Oh, right. Another thing that I did. As I was messing around with these ideas, this was more for a bit of the code for. Of these 2 ideas for the camera stuff, back when I was considering option A, and messing around with it, this plane that's plane on the floor, it's like the yellow lines and then a magenta that's like the forward direction. Well, it's not actually a forward direction, because ideally it would be turned towards, like, the camera or whatever, but yeah, that's the thing. It's just drawing 4 lines and then a 5th one. Yeah, as I was messing with, like, mapping the input to whatever plane that we're on. And, like, again, it's like mapping it to the slope that we're on. That's not the hard part. It's the forward direction, effectively. That's the hard part. That isn't, in option A, isn't always away from the camera. Especially if, you know, you're going up a wall. Right now, the camera is looking down, and yet, in theory, this should be moving you up. But it shouldn't always be moving you up. If I came into this from a loop-to-loop and then am now moving down from a loop-to-loop, this should now be moving me down. So like the fact that it's like conditional based on potentially our speed and the inputs from the last frame, that just makes, in theory, that to me that makes it sound like the math for that would be a lot more complicated. But I think the math for option B will also be complicated, but I think conceptually I like option B better. But then we'll see how it works and see if for the real implementation of my new camera ideas, if it'll actually be more of a combining option A and option B or something, make a new option C or whatever. I don't know. I'm still figuring all this out. And yeah, the camera, I don't need the camera itself to be perfect for this player to be perfect. I just need it to be good enough to be able to, yeah, go up the walls and you know, go around slopes. Mostly I'm doing this just to, yeah, be able to map the input direction properly to then be able to move on to more stuff with, yeah, going up walls and being upside down and whatnot. I don't need the camera itself to be absolutely perfect at this stage. I mean, it's decent enough. And even like the zooming in, like I'm fine to wait on like, yeah, fixing that later. Because again, with stuff like this, it's like it works in most cases. It's just a lot of edge cases. But with the camera itself, there's a ton of edge cases where stuff isn't working, but I kind of want to, you know, get that to be less. But with like the zoom in this weird thing, yeah, it's doing that, which isn't good. And ideally, I fix that eventually, but not. There are things that are higher priority for sure. Anyways, though, so I actually end before midnight. Yeah, so yeah, short little stream. I know it wasn't that much, but yeah, I just wanted to get some rambling out of the way. And yeah, so next time I'll be playing Lost in Random, and then after that, then yeah, getting more of this camera stuff done, and then continuing to make this character better and get them back to both how they were before in terms of the visual stuff, but then going far beyond that, and yeah, making a cool player. That'll be very cool. It'll be very awesome when it's done and working, and yeah, all that. Yeah, I'm looking forward to when this is done to then be able to actually be working on our test level again, and yeah, actually starting to construct it, and then having a proper demo of real gameplay will be super cool. I mean, yeah, very, very much looking forward to that. Just gotta get over this mountain of stuff that needs to be done before we can get to that point. But I'm up to the challenge, and yeah, coming along well so far. So anyways, I like keep repeating myself. I'll cut myself off here. Any other last things I wish to say? I don't think so. If there's something I've forgotten, then oh well, I'll say it next time. So anyways, yeah. So that'll do it for this live stream. If you liked it, look forward to more. Thank you all so much for watching, and as always, I'll see you around. All right, bye.